Sometimes the most revealing part of a tennis tournament happens after the match is already over. The cameras move on, the crowd starts heading home, and the players prepare for whatever comes next. But every now and then, something happens afterward that makes you look back at the entire tournament differently. That is exactly what happened with Alex in Cincinnati. After her heartbreaking 3-set loss to Amanda Anisimova, attention unexpectedly returned to Elena-Gabriela Ruse, the Romanian player Alex had faced just days earlier. And what made Ruse's reaction so interesting wasn't anger, controversy, or an attempt to take anything away from Alex. It was the opposite. It was respect. To understand why that mattered, you have to go back to their meeting earlier in the tournament, because that match had already revealed something important about how much Alex had developed. Ruse had actually won the opening game, but whatever confidence that gave her disappeared almost immediately. Alex responded by taking control of the match in spectacular fashion. She won 6 games in a row, repeatedly put Ruse under pressure, and finished the opening set 6-1 in only 34 minutes. The difference between the two players was becoming obvious. Alex was stepping inside rallies, attacking with confidence, and refusing to let Ruse establish any rhythm. Every time Ruse tried to change the direction of a point, Alex seemed ready with another answer. Then, as the second set began, the situation became even more difficult for the Romanian. Alex continued building her advantage, but suddenly the match stopped being only about tennis. Ruse began struggling with an issue involving her right foot and eventually requested medical attention. Her foot was treated and taped while the mood inside the stadium changed. A few minutes earlier, Alex had looked completely in control. Now everyone was wondering whether Ruse could physically continue. Then the weather made things even more complicated. Lightning and storms forced officials to suspend play at the Lindner Family Tennis Center. Players had to wait. The crowd had to wait. And Ruse was given more time to figure out whether her body would allow her to continue. When the match was finally ready to resume, the answer came quickly. Ruse informed officials that she couldn't go on, bringing the contest to an early end. Alex advanced, but it wasn't the kind of victory any player imagines when they step onto a court. She had dominated the tennis that was played, but she never got the opportunity to win the final point herself. That immediately created different reactions among fans. Some questioned the retirement. Others pointed toward the injury and argued that continuing simply wasn't worth the risk. But there was one thing nobody could really argue with. Before the retirement, Alex had been in complete control. And for Alex, there was another layer to the match that made it especially meaningful. Ruse wasn't a random opponent from the draw. She was someone who had beaten Alex before, and not in an ordinary match. Back in the final qualifying round of the 2024 US Open, Ruse had ended Alex's hopes of reaching the main draw. At that point in Alex's career, a defeat like that could feel enormous. 2 years later, the opportunity for an answer finally arrived. This time, Alex wasn't the same player. She wasn't simply trying to survive the moment. She was dictating it. She took control almost from the start and made it clear that the player standing across from her was going to have a very difficult afternoon. That's why the retirement created such a strange feeling. Alex had finally gotten her chance to respond to that old loss, and she had produced the kind of performance that showed how much had changed. But she didn't get the traditional ending. There was no final winning shot. No handshake after the last point. No moment where Alex could simply look at the scoreboard and say, "I finished it." Still, the message was there. Alex had grown. And Cincinnati was becoming another test of just how far that growth could take her. She had entered the North American hardcourt swing with serious momentum after winning her first WTA title in Washington and following that up with a strong showing in Toronto. Cincinnati offered another opportunity to prove that those results weren't just a brief hot streak. Against Ruse, Alex looked like a player who belonged. Then came Anisimova. And that match would tell an entirely different story. Alex took the opening set. She battled through difficult stretches. Then, in the deciding set, she jumped out to a 2-0 lead. The crowd was going crazy. For a moment, another huge win seemed within reach. But Anisimova changed the match. She escaped a crucial service game, found her rhythm, and then took control of the final stretch. Alex eventually lost 4-6, 6-4, 6-2. And this is where Ruse suddenly became part of the story again. She was no longer on the court. She wasn't preparing to face Alex. She was watching from the outside as the player she had faced only days earlier became one of the biggest talking points of the tournament. Alex was drawing huge crowds. Philippine flags were filling the stands. Supporters were traveling long distances to watch her. Even her opponents were talking about the atmosphere before stepping onto the court. Ruse had already experienced that environment herself. She knew what it felt like to play Alex while thousands of people were reacting to every important point. So when Alex eventually fell to Anisimova, Ruse had a perspective that most people didn't. She knew firsthand what Alex could do when she found her rhythm. She had felt the pressure of those aggressive rallies. She had seen how quickly Alex could turn a point around. She knew that the player who had beaten her in Cincinnati wasn't simply benefiting from crowd support. There was real tennis behind the attention. And that made Ruse's response especially meaningful. Instead of making the conversation about her own retirement, she focused on Alex. There was no obvious bitterness. No attempt to minimize what Alex had accomplished. Just an acknowledgement that Alex had become a serious opponent. And sometimes that kind of recognition means more than a compliment from someone watching from the stands. Professional players know what happens on the other side of the net. They understand the speed, pressure, physical demands, and mental battles that fans don't always see. Ruse had experienced all of that against Alex. So when she responded to Alex's defeat, she wasn't speaking about a player she barely knew. She was speaking about someone she had recently tried to stop herself. And there's another reason this moment stands out. Ruse has experienced the ugly side of being a professional athlete online. After difficult results in the past, she had publicly addressed abusive messages from fans. She knew how quickly disappointment can turn into hostility on social media. But this situation was completely different. Alex had lost, and instead of turning the result into another negative story, Ruse's reaction added another layer of respect to Alex's Cincinnati run. That's important because one defeat can sometimes make people forget everything that came before it. Alex lost to Anisimova, and suddenly some viewers might look at the tournament and think the run ended badly. But look at the full picture. Alex had beaten Ruse convincingly. She had advanced. She had pushed Anisimova into a long, intense 3-set battle. She had taken the first set against her. She had led early in the deciding set. And she had done all of that while an entire stadium was watching and expecting her to keep going. The final result was disappointing, but it didn't erase the level of tennis she had shown. And Ruse's reaction helped underline that point. Alex was no longer a player other professionals could casually overlook. She was becoming someone opponents had to prepare for. Someone capable of changing the rhythm of a match. Someone who could make a stadium feel completely different just by stepping onto the court. That's a major shift for a young player still building her career. The Cincinnati story therefore became much bigger than the loss to Anisimova. It contained the revenge against Ruse, even though that match ended through retirement. It contained the fight against Anisimova, where Alex came dangerously close to another top-level victory. And it contained something that doesn't show up anywhere on the official statistics page: respect. The kind of respect that comes from another professional understanding exactly what it takes to stand across the net from you. Now Alex has to carry all of that into New York. The US Open is approaching, and the stage will be even bigger. The crowds will be louder. The pressure will be greater. And the expectations surrounding Alex will continue to rise. But perhaps Cincinnati gave her something more valuable than another win. It showed her that she can create an atmosphere, handle major opponents, and earn recognition even when the scoreboard doesn't go her way. The loss to Anisimova will still hurt. That's unavoidable. Alex had been close, and she knows it. But the reaction afterward tells a different story. Ruse had faced Alex and understood the challenge. Anisimova had survived her best stretches and recognized the atmosphere around her. Thousands of fans had stayed with her until after midnight. And now the tennis world is starting to pay closer attention. So when Alex steps onto the court in New York, she won't simply be carrying the disappointment of Cincinnati. She'll be carrying the lessons, the confidence, the support, and the growing respect that came from it. Because the scoreboard may have said Alex lost her final match in Cincinnati. But everything that happened around that defeat suggested something very different. Alex is moving forward, and the players across the net are beginning to notice. For 2 years, There had been a match sitting somewhere in the back of Alex's mind. Not because she talked about it every day, and not because she was still living in the past, but because some losses stay with you simply because you know how close you were to something bigger. At the 2024 US Open, Elena-Gabriela Ruse had ended Alex's run in the final round of qualifying, leaving her just one victory away from reaching the Grand Slam main draw. 2 years later, Alex finally stood across the net from the same opponent again. But this time, everything had changed. Alex wasn't the same player who had walked away from that 2024 qualifying defeat. She had won her first WTA title. She had made her presence felt on the biggest stages. She had climbed into the world's top 20. And when the rematch finally arrived in Cincinnati, she played like someone who knew exactly how much she had grown. From the opening points, Alex was aggressive. Ruse struggled to find a way into the match, while Alex kept forcing her into uncomfortable positions. The first set disappeared quickly, 6-1. Then Alex carried that same momentum into the second, moving ahead 3-0. Suddenly, the rematch that had been waiting for 2 years looked almost completely one-sided. But then the match took a turn nobody wanted. Ruse was dealing with an issue involving her right foot. She received treatment, play was later interrupted by weather, and after the delay, she made the difficult decision that she couldn't continue. Just like that, the match was over. Alex had advanced, but there was no dramatic final point. No last game celebration. No chance to close the match in the way she had imagined. And yet, what Alex did next may have been more revealing than anything she had done during the match. She didn't celebrate Ruse's retirement. She didn't bring up the 2024 defeat. She didn't turn the moment into some dramatic revenge story. Her attention immediately went toward the person on the other side of the net. Alex made it clear that winning because an opponent is unable